So here's a question, and this video is about joy, and specifically, where does the joy go in your life? So there are some absolutes in narcissistic relationships, and one of these absolutes is that things that give you joy will always be taken away by these relationships, or looked at sideways, or somehow twisted and distorted. These sources of joy can be small things like your Diet Coke. They can be bigger things like a yearly friends or family reunion you love going to. They can be things that give you meaning, your faith, or volunteer work you do. They could be a hobby like fishing or quilting. Narcissistic relationships are joy stealers and joy killers. Remember, the architecture of a narcissistic relationship is that the narcissistic people have to be in charge of reality. They are the ones who have to hold all the power, and the balance in the relationship is kept as far as the narcissistic person is concerned. As long as the other person in the relationship fully gives up on their true selves, silences themselves, and becomes what the narcissistic person wants, then the relationship feels safe, and it kind of works. Self-sacrifice is the only path. And one of the big things that has to go as part of this self-sacrifice is your joy, especially if what gives you joy has nothing to do with the narcissistic person. When narcissistic people sense that you're experiencing joy, or, heaven forbid, that you're the center of attention, for example, it's your birthday party or some other event that celebrates or honors you, or a group you're a part of. In almost every case, the narcissistic person will sit like a sullen child, moping around, may even ask to leave early, making you and everyone else uncomfortable. And even at any other social gathering, if you're experiencing joy in that setting, they will be angry that you didn't notice that they weren't having that much fun. Listen, if we could see all your hands, all of you in these relationships, raise your hands. And my guess is that almost all of you have been through this at least once, at one event in your narcissistic relationship. Now, joy can show up in very different ways in our lives. It can be momentary awe, right? About a beautiful red and purple sunset, about a shooting star that you see in the night sky, about spring flowers that are just starting to pop up. Joy can be the pleasure you find with other people, laughing out loud until your face hurts, enjoying other people's company, them enjoying your company, feeling safe and seen and heard, and sharing activities together. Joy can be something you derive from something that entertains you. A great song, listening to a live band, dancing, seeing an amazing film or a television show, or reading a great book. Joy can come from your work if you're lucky. Joy can come from a hobby. And I don't mean anything like knitting, interior design, fixing cars, making art, exercising, woodworking, line dancing. You can get joy from those things. Joy can come from playing with a child and listening to them laugh, or playing with your pet. Joy can be trying something new, experiencing new sensations like swimming in a warm ocean at night, or eating a new delicious food you've never had before. Joy is a moment, and it's a moment when you are in the moment, and it's a good moment. You often feel in flow and connected with yourself and others. And in joyful moments, you're aware it's good. There's a childlike quality to joy, a sort of clapping your hands at the wondrous thing you see. It's when people are experiencing joy, there's a sparkle in their eyes, and it is so healing, and it is stolen in these relationships. You might wonder, why are narcissistic relationships such joy stealers? There's a sort of contemptuous criticism that cuts through narcissistic people in general. Even when they're grandiose, they're sort of natural malcontents. They're never fully happy. They're complainers. There's always a chronic irritability that's right under the surface. Sometimes it's even a snooty like, "What is this?" Even in those friendly, grandiose, narcissistic folks, again, they find something to complain about. So they can be quite contemptuous and invalidating when someone in their midst gets joy out of something very simple. I don't know, watching a hummingbird hovering. Narcissistic person will say, "What's the big deal? It's a bird." Or from seeing a group of friends just having fun and laughing. And the narcissistic person will say, "God, grow up. Like, why are you so loud? You're making us look bad." Or just watching someone enjoy a hobby, saying, "Oh great, what a lovely craft. Now you're going to make our house look cheesy with your new decorating project." Or just living your damn life. And then saying like, "GH, how much is this new interest of yours going to cost me?" The narcissistic person may kill joy with a passing comment. It may be criticism, it may be disgust, dismissiveness, eye rolls, and frankly, for a lot of folks in narcissistic relationships, there can be hell to pay after you make time for a little bit of joy in your life. Things like, "Oh, so your friends are so much more important than our relationship. You sure seem to like other people out there more than me. You seem to laugh with them so much more." Or saying things like, "Okay, well, now that you wasted a day doing all that nonsense, it's time to come back to the real world. You better get this and that done." You may be told that you're immature, childish, selfish, greedy, or that you always put yourself first just because you wanted to just be in a joyful moment. You definitely cannot share your joy in these relationships. Now, you may have initially shared your joy because you thought you were in a normal relationship, just to have to listen to their negativity and contempt. Narcissistic people have no interest in what makes you happy, and they often take offense that something other than them is grabbing your attention. And between the confusing misery of the relationship, the isolation, the trauma-bonded time wasted to make the relationship work, the guilt, and the not understanding what is happening in the relationship, you may slowly stop doing joyful things, sharing joyful things, going to joyful things, participating in joyful things, spending time with joyful people, or even allowing yourself that momentary joy about that shooting star. By doing that, by holding back on the joy, then you won't have to face the wrath and the petulance and the spoiled child's sullen malcontentedness of the narcissist. And then you get to stop hearing how selfish you are. It's a little bit of a relief, but it ain't joy. But you have also, if when you do that, abandoned such an important and essential part of yourself. You may be wondering at this point, well, do narcissistic people experience joy? Is the shame, the insecurity, the anger, the selfishness, they all cut into the narcissistic person's capacity to be able to do so. Narcissistic people experience reward. That's all that dopamine stuff. They get attention, money, a new car. They get enjoyment out of watching someone else fail. That gives them a sort of a rush, like a high. A high and joy are not the same thing. Joy is more experiential. It's much more in the moment. You tend to be fully present, right? It's wonder instead of just plain pleasure. Joy is quite often collective. 100 people on a beach who don't know each other, but in the collective experience of just happiness over an orange sunset, or an auditorium full of people who don't know each other, listening to live music. Reward. This idea of reward in the way that narcissistic people experience it is something like, for example, for a narcissist, it's something that went the way that they wanted it to, and it makes them feel so much more powerful. That's not really joy. Joy isn't about power. It really is about awe and wonder. And for narcissistic people, the innocence of wonder is something that sadly is just buried under lots of shame and anger, and this constant sense of suspiciousness and threat that narcissistic people struggle with. Frankly, I really do believe if we could teach narcissistic people to genuinely experience joy and co-experience it with others, that could actually be a very powerful intervention to address narcissism. Good luck with that. But what this means for you as a survivor of narcissistic relationship or relationships, and honestly, this experience of joy is an essential part of healing, is how do you find the joy that got lost? And this is a multi-step process of healing. So first, step 1, you have to go backwards and figure out what you stopped enjoying or doing. So figure out who are the joy-bringing people you might have disconnected from. Dig into the why. What happened? Why did you give up the hobby? And you can either talk about this with someone and journal about it, but figure out where it went. You may learn that it felt invalidating or unsafe to express joy even since an early age, that the gaslighting about your joy confused you. But go back and figure out what happened to it. It's like you misplaced it. Second, it's to figure out how to re-engage joy. Now, we can't go back in time. We cannot be 30 years younger. And maybe some of the stuff that gave us joy is not available to us anymore, right? We can't be younger. We can't erase our brains of what happened. For example, the things that once gave us joy, some of these places might be gone. We may not be able to do physical activities in the same way, but that idea of joy never goes away. Maybe you pick up a hobby again in some form. Maybe you reach back out to the friends. You paint the wall the color you want it. You watch the movies or shows that make you laugh. You eat breakfast for dinner. You take a walk around the neighborhood and pay attention and see things you didn't see before. If the narcissistic person is still around and is still part of your life, then you're going to have to do this using the usual rules of disengagement that are so essential to healing. You keep your joy to yourself. You don't tell them. You don't share it with them. You don't include them in it. This can become a very personal space of healing for you to take it back. Third, it's essential that you lean into those small moments of joy. The bird out the window, the full moon, the daffodil, and you keep it yours. Maybe you write about it, maybe take a picture of it, but you keep it as yours. Experiencing joy is an act of defiance when you are in an emotionally abusive narcissistic relationship. The joy apparatus in you still works, and you have whatever that joy moment is, and you make the deliberate choice to keep it as yours and not try to draw the narcissistic person into it. The tragedy of it, and I've seen this firsthand so many times, is that so many survivors from such a loving place are trying to draw the narcissistic person into the beautiful moment and give them the experience of joy. They'll turn to the narcissistic person, say, "Oh my gosh, look how beautiful this sunset is." And look how wonderful this rain feels on your face. And they'll often get the feedback of who gives a shit? It's the sun. It's going to happen again tomorrow. You are trying to share the joy, but that narcissistic person may not have that apparatus, and you can't build it for them. And so you abandoned that joy experiencing part of yourself, maybe even feel guilty, or maybe you're told your joy is foolish. It's not. Because until my mom died, I watched her knock herself out trying to encourage my father to enjoy the joyful things in his life, his grandchildren's performances and school plays, wanting him to experience that joy. It never worked. And I'd watch her break her heart over and over again. And I told her to stop wasting her time. She goes and sees it. She gets the joy. That should be enough. And she sort of died on that hill as though she believed that if he could experience joy, that he would change. He didn't, and now she's gone. Fourth, if you did have the chance to get out of the narcissistic relationship, commit to joy with other people in the small moments, in ways you spend your time, and pay close attention to anyone new who comes into your life and tries to turn off this joy light. This is discernment at the highest level. If someone cannot be with your joy, then hard no on them. Stick them in the cheap seats of your life if they are someone you cannot get rid of. Healing when you stay when you cannot completely eject from these relationships. As I said, healing in and of itself is a damn act of defiance. And it means switching the calculus from abandoning yourself to instead releasing the hope of this relationship being anything much more than relatively superficial with a narcissistic person. They only have the capacity to center themselves and will get prickly when you have a you or an experience that is separate from them. I have watched people lose their joy for a lifetime, for decades, because of these relationships. Sadly, being served the BS messages that love is sacrifice. Love done right, love done safely, is not sacrifice. Ask yourself about your joy. Journal about it. Explore it. What joys did you give up for this relationship or relationships? What expressions of joy did you give up for this relationship? What joyful people and collective experiences did you give up for this relationship? You misplaced them for good reason. Now go find them and slowly bring them back. Just don't let the narcissistic people know.